Welcome everyone to the live Q&A webinar. Erin Snow, our clinical director for our Seeking Integrity residential treatment program and overseeing all other aspects of the Seeking Integrity programs, is here tonight. Dr. Rob and Erin alternate weeks. So we welcome your questions. Those of you joining live, we welcome your questions. And if you are watching this and would like to join us, just join us. Come join the live webinar and ask your questions so that you get to ask yours. So Erin, we have a question. Could you touch upon the notion of compartmentalization? I'm having trouble understanding this. My husband is an SA and for 5 years has been visiting massage parlors, sleeping with prostitutes and porn stars, and having a 5-year affair with another woman. He is getting the help he needs and seeing a CSAT and tried to explain to me how he compartmentalized it all. I am so confused. Did I hit record? I did. Sorry. I am so confused because apparently me too, because the past year I thought was the best year of our marriage. We have both got healthy and our sex life was great. It has only been 4 months since D-Day, so everything is so new, fresh, and confusing. I am so glad you're here. Like, that is so painful. We hear it. And Erin, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the first thing that comes up for me is just I'm so sorry and how painful it is, especially when it feels like the last year of your marriage was the best. And then to find out this was all at play is really painful. And yes, compartmentalization is a real thing, obviously. Addiction requires it. You know, being an addict, in my past, I had to, in one compartment, function in the real world, show up to my job, be all the things. And then over here in the dark, it was like it was what it was. And it's an element of lying to yourself. I mean, I even think some of our clients, when they first come to treatment, are still very compartmentalized. And they can say things like, well, I was the perfect husband. And I'm like, were you were you really? Like, let's look at this. But the denial is so thick because they're not integrated into one human being, where all the compartments are part of one integrated person of integrity. They're siloed off into parts. And realistically, this part that acts out was created as a means of dealing with the things in my real life that I can't tolerate. I either can't tolerate the emotions because they're too uncomfortable, or I want to feel something that I don't allow myself to feel in my real life. Right. So it's almost this like fantasy container over here that grows over time. And the denial between it has to exist, or addiction cannot work. If you were over here in fantasy and moving towards acting out, all the thoughts of your family would, of course, contaminate that fantasy. And in recovery, that's the goal. We want you to be one integrated human being. But in addiction, you are highly compartmentalized. In fact, in that other compartment, oftentimes their frontal cortex is not even online. It goes offline when you are in that intensity dopamine seeking stage. All other things go away. That's what I'm after right now. It's almost like a fight or flight response. It's those more primal parts of the brain that do not involve judgment, do not involve, critical thinking, cognitive, behavior. So it's really hard to understand because you're looking at the one person that you're in a relationship with. And it's like, but who is this other person? Who is this other compartment? And it's really challenging, of course, for you to say, I was in love with this person, and there's many other parts of them that I just had no awareness of. And how traumatic that is when all the worlds collide. It's actually in some ways traumatic for them too, in a very different way. But it's like they come face to face with my reality is all colliding. And what have I done? When that kind of integration begins to happen, the shame is immense. It is like, how could I say in the light, I am this man that shows up to church every Sunday and is a good father and shows up to my kids' games and cares about my wife and loves my wife and is able to do all of these things? How could it be? They experience an intense amount of shame, despair, suicidality comes up, so I get that it's confusing. It defies logic. It doesn't make sense. And yet it happens with addiction.
And I often say to partners, could never understand this because your brain doesn't think like this. But yeah, I agree with Erin, what she's saying about, yes, it has to exist. Our colleague Scott, I remember on one of the webinars he was talking about the bubble, and I think it's such a good way of looking at this. Is like, he was sharing his experience, and I won't get it completely right, but he's like, in the bubble, you get in the car to go see the drug dealer or the sex worker or whatever. You have no recollection of getting in the car at the start or the whole drive there. You're like, you are completely in a zone and not in any kind of conscious state. Thank goodness you don't have a car accident, but at the end of the day, like, you are in such a place in your brain that you don't have any recollection of that, and then you act out, and then yeah, you have to tuck it completely away. What Erin's talking about is, if we learn to be congruent. But yeah, it's like when all those compartments are siloed and things are staying in those nice clean compartments, then addiction can thrive. And as soon as they start leaking into each other, that's exactly what happens. You're talking about, like, it's so confusing and it's so painful and scary for both of you. And I'm not going to minimize for the addict too, because it's like, like Erin was saying, you love this version, and your addict partner is going, but I'm a whole bunch of other things, and are you going to love me when you discover all these things? And as I peel this back, how am I going to tolerate the shame of who I really am? And it's very difficult, and that's what recovery is all about, is learning to bring all of the dark stuff into the light, airing it all out and figuring out who we are, one congruent person. And that's what, I love the name of our company, Seeking Integrity. We strive for that personally. You can't be compartmentalized and scattered all over the place and be in integrity and compartmentalized. We have got to be congruent, and do what we say we're going to do and be one person, not this version over here and that version over there. But it's a lot of learning and unfortunately pain for both of you. So
yeah. And also I think that part of why we're so pro full disclosure is because, honestly, when an addict says they don't remember, sometimes they're lying, right? I don't want to talk about that. Other times they're actually telling the truth, right? Like I said, in the bubble, I am in the zone. I am like a robotic creature that is seeking the thing. And afterwards, to avoid the despair and shame and all the things I feel, I tell myself a bunch of lies. I tuck it back into the closet, and then I go into neutral robot forward and back into life. But when people do like off the cuff disclosures, oftentimes they're almost every time they're botched, every time they're incomplete. Sometimes our addicts have to, like, with their therapist, go through their bank records, go through their, Find Friend app, go through emails, like, to actually just put together the magnitude of what it was, because they couldn't tell you. They would, if they gave you a number, oftentimes our clients in week 1 are like, I think it was, 5. And by week 2, they're like, oh my God, this has been going on for a long time. And they're not trying to be facetious or deceitful to us. It's just the things that are in their awareness when they're sitting with you face to face is not always the full picture. And it takes a minute for those walls to come down and to actually recognize the gravity of what is. Which is why we're a huge proponent of full therapeutic disclosure with a CSAT therapist, because there is investigators on the case that are going to help you and help him prepare for that information. And also in a way where he has the time and space to get a complete, to the best of his, knowledge, record versus multiple botched atomic bomb trickle disclosures.
well, and even best situation, formal therapeutic disclosure, both of you have your qualified professionals. You've done a really solid job, and something can come to mind. And guess what? If you're working with qualified professionals, there's a plan. There is a plan, because this stuff happens where it was like, oh, it wasn't that I excluded that on purpose. It was like that never came to mind, and then something brings that memory to light, and you go, oh, and that, so there's a plan. So even within a formal therapeutic disclosure, getting all of the information, but like maybe not, so
well, it depends how prolific it was, how long this has been going on. every iterations of different chapters of life. It flares up, it goes away, it comes back, all of that is part of this. And it's already like trust has already been shattered. And so to believe anything is difficult, but to have therapeutic support where you have another person saying, I believe to the best of his ability, this is the accurate record, then it's helpful.
Okay, so the next question, and we would invite your questions and we run out of time. So betrayed here, how and when can I tell if my partner has the potential to be redeemable or not? He's a sex addict, porn addict, rageaholic, and has integrity issues. He said his ex-wife is a narcissist and he is estranged from his whole family. Since discovery and both of us diving into therapeutic support and research, while he's using the right words, attending all meetings, reading books, and seeing a CSAT, his integrity issues and escalations in rage make me wonder if he is calculated, manipulative, and potentially narcissist. Or is this par for the course 5 months after discovery? He does things like lying about silly stuff and lying about me by creating certain impressions to his recovery groups. His rage escalations now include name calling, obvious gaslighting, physical destruction. There's abuse of all sorts, the victim mentality, all while his recovery program coach tells me he's doing great. I'm seeing an app set and 10 groups as well. Wow, that's a lot. Thanks for sharing this.
Absolutely. So no, I would not call this par for the course, right? And to me, when I look at this from the outside, I immediately go to safety, right? I want first and foremost for you to be in a safe enough environment where you can heal. Any type of, the name calling, gaslighting, I'm thinking active addiction. But then when we talk about like physical destruction, abuse of all sorts, I go to separation. There's no way for you, after all you've been through, to heal when you are being constantly re-traumatized like this. So no, this isn't par for the course. Slips and lying, yes. Especially for guys who learned to lie in childhood. They learned as a way to avoid losing love. Tell the right thing, not the authentic thing. It is so ingrained in their process that they're going to mess up. That's why we put in things like the 24-hour rule that says if you tell a white lie, a lie at all, a lie by omission, that you have 24 hours of grace to bring that, because that's where recovery can kick in. I can recognize it, bring awareness to it, and I can make it right within 24 hours. And it's dumb stuff. Like, like I always say, you went to Taco Bell instead of the gym, right? That lie, the lie itself is what is causing the destruction. You can deal with, what comes up if you said, I went to Taco Bell, I didn't go to the gym. So no, I would be at this point thinking, what do you need to do to get safe? What boundaries do you need to put in place that are non-negotiables at this point, which is I will not be around physical destruction. I will not be in an environment where I don't feel physically and emotionally safe. Is it one thing to have arguments and things come up and we're managing conflict and learning how to have better conversations? Absolutely par for the course. These guys are learning a new way of communicating that they have never engaged in their entire life. But to me is beyond that. And I would be figuring out what you need to do to pull away. So the consequence always is when I don't feel safe, I enact boundaries so that I pull away to feel safer. I remove myself from you. As I feel safe with you, I will move closer to you, right? The boundaries are about keeping you safe. And this has like safety issues written all over it. So in terms of him being redeemable or not, I believe all addicts are redeemable. They have to A, do the work, and B, their behavior has to follow behind that work. Their behavior actually has, so you don't get to show up to a recovery group and everyone's like, you're the best, because what are we doing? We're compartmentalizing again. Now I'm the good boy, the good recovery boy. And at home, I'm a totally different person. I treat my wife with disrespect. Like that's not 12-step recovery. Yes, we're not going to do it perfectly. We're going to make mistakes, but I'm talking, we make a mistake, we own it. And an amends is about actionable difference, change in behavior. So he needs either increased support or different support for his anger issues alone. And there's lots of options out there for that, especially the kind of intersection between sex addiction and anger. But yeah, this behavior is not okay. You need to feel safe and you need to have boundaries for yourself to be able to heal. This is re-traumatizing.
And I'm wondering, so boundaries are for your safety and they are not punishment or control. They're about you. So, but I'm wondering about his CSAT. He's seeing a CSAT and a recovery coach. And so, I'm wondering what information the two of them have, and if they're talking. Have you done a session with his CSAT? Because the therapist would be the primary person rather than the coach, because this is mental health issues, welcome to our world. And that is, going to be a CSAT, not a coach. And so, a coach can help with the day in and day out, like the plan. It's like a fitness coach, like this is the exercise you're going to do today. But a CSAT can be looking at the, some of these underlying issues and, getting a greater plan. And with all due respect, if, let me see, he's attending all the meetings. That's good. Okay. Is he working the steps? That would be one of my things. Cause like lots of people sit and warm up the chairs and don't really make progress. It really is doing the work to change. And you're 5 months in. So like the recovery, that will take longer. But again, I'm with Erin, like this, the abuse is not okay. The violence, like when you're saying destructive, violence is not okay on either side. We hear of partners that are, destructive and physically abusive, and it's not okay. So I put in there's a blog that has the link to 4 webinars that we did kind of in the should I stay or go, and it was helpful with Kristen Snowden's 10 questions, John Gottman's work, 10 questions to journal about, like, do I even like this person? Do I, whatever. And it's just information. And then we had a mediator, we had 2 partners, one stayed, one left. And then we had, some legal, not advice, but some legal information. It just all data for you, just things to consider. But you being safe, I can only imagine how dysregulating this is for you, like wondering, what you're going to get when he walks in the door as well. So
Top of already being dysregulated,
correct.
just the discovery alone is so traumatizing and dysregulating. But then you don't have someone that's looking you in the face and being, oh my God, I see the wreckage and pain that I've caused. Your pain is causing a trigger in him to behave the way that he is. I mean, that's not the way this is set up to be. You need space and time to heal, and that behavior is absolutely not okay. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is, what is the window of time within which a full therapeutic disclosure should take place after discovery? We were going to do it ASAP, but realized his lack of integrity and self-awareness would be a block to the disclosure, and he's just not there yet. I'm the betrayed. We have an APSAT and CSAT.
So I don't like to put finite time limits on this because I think it's different for every couple. I will say a common trend is we see, I want it now. I want it right now. And every CSAT has a different process, but I would say none of them are 3 days from now. It requires both preparation for the partner and for the addict. So the addict is doing all of his fact finding, all of his going through the years of his life. He's preparing a full disclosure that feels to the best of his ability, honest and in integrity. And for the partner, it's, how am I going to receive this information? How am I going to stabilize myself and regulate myself when I'm getting this information? What questions do I have to prepare? What do I really want to know? What's helpful information versus hurtful information? So that process shouldn't be rushed. I have seen, though, addicts that delay it and delay it and delay it and delay it and delay it. And that's not helpful either. And I think that's where CSATs do have to step in and say, look, you're ready, we're doing this, or you're not ready, and here's why we're calling this off. In your case, yeah, integrity and self-awareness are required for a disclosure. We always say that the first thing that's required for disclosure is sobriety. You have to stop the acting out. You can't go into a disclosure saying, oh, and I also need to tack on what happened yesterday. I mean, that's this is a part of a foundational place of launching into recovery together. This is not a place for, I just want to like offload my guilt and get right. This has meaningful purpose for both pieces. So if he's still like regularly lying, doesn't have self-awareness, and you're still feeling, even in the relationship, he's not showing any of the signs of being able to take ownership. And really, disclosure is about ownership. It's about full accountability of, here's the record of what has happened, what I've done, and putting that out in a space of truth and awareness. If he's still lying a lot, I mean, it'd be different if it's like, again, I lied about the gym versus Taco Bell, and I told you within 24 hours, and I'm practicing those recovery skills, and here's what I did when that happened. Those are different. But no self-awareness and still really dealing with lying issues on a regular basis and not making that right. Yeah, I could see why it would be postponed. But again, I would lean on your APSAT, lean on your CSAT to be able to assess the situation and say, he's stalling, or he's not ready, or he's not really in recovery, and giving you some clarity as to like, when can you expect this? Because I do understand on the partner side, it's very anxiety provoking in the waiting. I don't even know what my reality is. I'm still reeling from the reality I thought I had, got bombed with some information. Now I'm like, am I filling in the blanks that there's a bunch of, I go to the worst place in my mind. I get there's anxiety in the waiting. So I feel for you. I really do. And I would say call a meeting with you and your husband and CSAT and APSAT and sit down and say, what's the plan? What's it going to take to be ready? How long am I waiting? What boundaries do I need to put in place here in the waiting? Yeah, because this is a tough one.
Well, and I would lean into your app set to help create the healthy boundaries that you need, because, while you're in this in between, what are you doing for self-care so that you're prepared, like Erin was talking about, but also, until we have formal therapeutic disclosure, is he sleeping in a different room? Like, how are you setting things up so that you have, some regulation for your, I always say healthy boundaries: physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual. What are you doing to take care of you? Because unfortunately, and I hate this, but yeah, we as addicts will delay as long as we possibly can. And if you get from the therapist, I love what Erin said, getting them all together. But, if they're going like, well, we'll have to wait and see, like that would be, this is my, but give it serious thought. Do not say, I'm giving it till this date, and otherwise I'm divorcing, unless you are really serious and that's what you're willing to do. You got to be able to back up whatever you say. But if it's like this nebulous thing and you've got no idea, that may not be tolerable for you. Maybe it is, but it doesn't feel like it just from what you're sharing. So, but you've got two qualified professionals. Hopefully there's releases so that they're able to talk between each other, as well on your behalf. But yes, a scheduled meeting for the four of you so that you have a plan. We just want to know what the plan is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next one, my SA tends to keep score, as in I'm going to meetings, meeting with my therapist, etc. So therefore you should respond by loosening up your boundaries. It feels very transactional. I need to see real change, real remorse, real amends, etc. before I'm willing to let up my boundaries. I'm not seeing any heart change. He's been in recovery for a year and a half. It's taken him 5 months to work step one. A month later, he started working on step two. What should I see before moving closer to him? This is such a great question too. Like we're getting great questions. Thank you all for sharing those. But this is unfortunately the journey. So
Yeah. So of course, part of what we say is like, action, not your words, are what is going, but they sometimes, and we get this guys in treatment as well, they're like, but I'm checking these boxes. I'm checking these boxes. I did this lecture. I went to this meeting. I talked to this person. And it's like, yeah, but is that internalizing? Meaning that my behavior and the way that I show up in the relationship is changing. I show up when I say I'm going to show up. I have figured out ways to help hold your pain when you're feeling something versus going to like victimhood and defensiveness. I am able to respect your boundaries and have boundaries of my own. all of those areas, like you said, some of these things, remorse, empathy, amends, do come later, right? And I think working the steps is a massive transitional piece in all of that. And it sounds like he's dragging a little bit on getting through those steps. But what comes to mind is out of the doghouse could be a really good option for him. He's in recovery, he's got some of those like foundational basics, but out of the doghouse is really about how to help your partner heal. I mean, it goes into empathy development skills, like reflective listening and how not to make promises, how not to keep score. I mean, this is a big one, is like checking the boxes doesn't mean like, get me back in the bed. It has to be emotionally felt on some level. And it's almost, that maternal, like that parent-child relationship, when it's like, look, but my report card says I got all A's. And it's like, yeah, and you're still an asshole. Like, and that does take time. Like some of those character defects, some of those character flaws, some of the defensiveness, the reactivity, some of that does take time. But we're a year and a half in. You should be seeing a lot more of those things at home, the ownership, the empathy, the ability to express remorse, what amends actually looks like. And I will say on the flip side, we do have partners that the client, the addict is doing their work. They are expressing change and difference, and the partner's not doing their work, meaning that no matter what the addict does, they cannot see it for what it is because they're still stuck in the trauma. And so that's why we advocate for both partners being on their healing journey. I know for betrayed partners, it's like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. But just like if you got in a car accident, it wasn't your fault. You didn't cause it. You didn't want it, but you still have to deal with the damage done to your body, you know? And so I would just say, looking at the balanced approach of like, what work do I need to continue to do to be able to let go of the past, trust my inner intuition, and begin to use myself as an anchor in moving forward in what safety looks like in this relationship. Boundaries are moving closer, moving further away, protecting yourself. And then being able to actually say, this is what I need to see in order to move closer to you. I need to have more check-ins where we have vulnerable and open communication. I need to feel like if I have a moment where I have pain I want to express, that you're able to hold that for me, and you're able to respond in a way that doesn't feel defensive or like you're the victim. Being more concrete in like what I actually need. I think Brene Brown does this amazing, I can't find it anymore. It's out there though. It's called The Anatomy of Trust. And it is the acronym BRAVING,
I love that one.
BRAVING. And it's so good because it's easy to say, I don't trust you, but to actually break down what that means. Do you have boundaries and allow and respect mine? Are you reliable? Do you actually do what you say you're going to do, and not just once, every time? Are you accountable? Right? The vault is respecting confidence, both in your own story and the stories of others. Integrity, big one. Non-judgment is just saying, I don't assume the worst about you before checking it out with you. And G is generosity. And so I think it's important to figure out what is it that I need and being able to communicate that, right? If there's a gap between you checking all these boxes and doing these action steps, but something's missing, figuring out what that is and being really clear with what that is, and getting your CSAT support for help on developing those skills if they're not there.
Yeah. And I'm so I talk to lots of therapists, and there's a lot of them that don't hold clients as accountable. And with addiction work, it is accountability. It's very different than the support that partners need and deserve. And so to me, when somebody a year and a half in is on their second step, that they haven't realized that all of this stuff that's been going on with step one, my life is unmanageable. Like, to me, that is the stall. And I've said often, we did a webinar, Scott and I did a webinar February 7th, it's posted, but on the 12 steps 4 through 9 are housekeeping. When somebody's dragging their feet on 1, 2, and 3, to me, it feels like I'm going to drag my feet because I don't want to get to that fourth step, which is, a searching and fearless moral inventory. It's scary, but lots of addicts don't ever do that. And you know what happens? They don't make it. And so if we're willing to do steps 4 through 9, there are promises. We talk about them in the 12 steps. We will be amazed before we are halfway through. There's 12 steps. So before you get to step 6, you're going to be amazed. And it's freeing. If we do the housekeeping, guess what? We don't have a whole bunch of junk stuff in our closets and under the bed and everywhere else that are, like dust bunnies and everything else. We get to clean it up and we feel better. We feel better. And addicts get scared because what I know is this, not that. And so there's the leap of faith. But again, for you, I love what Erin was saying. It's like, you can share this with him. It's like, yes, I know you're checking off the boxes. I want to be closer to you. I want to be closer to you. And your actions are not showing me that you are ready yet to do that. Here's what I'm looking for. And I always say, like if you tell an addict, I need you to show empathy, you better say, and empathy for me would look like, because otherwise it's like, what, and honesty would look like, you say you're going to, be home at 5 o'clock, you're home at 5 o'clock, not 5:03, I mean, whatever it is, what is it for you? And you can share in a like in a really conversational tone. I yearn to be in connection with you. And your behaviors have not shown me that you're safe to do that yet. But let's see if we can come up with a plan. And yeah, the gold star for just not doing the things that we weren't supposed to be doing, it doesn't really work. Okay. My partner and I have a joint meeting company up with his recovery coach for the program he's in. I want to tell him my concerns. My partner is all about his image being wrapped up in being the nice guy. I can see him get a rush when he gets kudos for his responses to other men in the group. He told me all the guys in the group, including the recovery coach, are too soft on each other in terms of accountability. And I don't think my partner is being vulnerable and authentic enough. I'm concerned his coach won't believe me and that my partner will get angry and feel like I've betrayed his trust by outing him on the things he shared with me. What should I or shouldn't I share with his coach?
Yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't share anything with his coach. Here's what I might recommend. I think that recovery, they have to have ownership and privacy over their own recovery. Obviously there's certain things that you're asking for and you want to know about, and you're going to communicate about those things, but they have to have autonomy with their sponsor, with their recovery brothers, with their recovery coach. They have to have that. So what I could see you doing is saying to him, I'm concerned about these things. Would you be open to the two of us sitting down with your coach and talking about some of these things? Or would you be open to me having a conversation with him? But I think that for accountability's sake, meaning that he's doing this for him, not for you, he's actually owning that he wants to change versus, my partner came in and blew me up. I feel like a kid again. Now I feel like it doesn't work, is all I'm saying. And so I think that the most responsible way to go about it would be to tell him, in a loving way, I do have concerns. And yes, I already struggle with trust. I struggle with this whole thing, and I want this to be your journey. I really do. And yet there's parts of it that I'm concerned about. Would you be open to the three of us sitting down and having a conversation about those concerns? Or are you able to receive those concerns from me and take that to your group? But it feels like a boundary violation there to kind of like go behind his back and spill the beans, unless that person's reaching out and saying, hey, I'd like to have a call with you and find out your perspective and what you think is going on. You want certain things to be his journey. And if you are involved in it in a way that feels maternal, he will resent the whole process, and you at some point do have to trust. Like oftentimes in treatment, we do have partners because they're leveraging, oh my God, this is the first time he's in treatment and he's such a good liar and he's such a good, that they'll reach out to us and just unload like tons of information. But what they're not doing is trusting that this is what we do. This is what we do as a profession. We are not going to miss this. We are going to scour this person. We're going to work with them. We're going to dig during the, but that's a process that unfolds over time. We want to build rapport with them. We want to build trust. We want to start to work through those layers. So I get it. And I've been in that place myself where I'm like, I'm going to call him up and tell him the truth, but me focusing back on my own healing journey, letting him have his process, and trusting that the professionals involved and even his peers are eventually going to see what I have seen over time. Because getting involved, it's like all of a sudden it feels like it's not his anymore. So that's just my perspective. I don't know, Tammy, where you land on that.
Well, I have a question for you, and I would, because I was wondering, like, could this partner say to her addict partner, are you open to an observation? Here's what I see. I see you taking in the external validation from other people. I wonder how that feels for you, because to me that would be, well, they don't really know me. It's the same thing that I was doing when I was an addict, of putting up this false front, so it would not feel like I could take that in, because if they really knew, I'm talking the talk, but I'm not walking the walk, as we say. So I was just wondering, what would your thoughts be about sharing from that place of, like, I'm curious how you feel about this, because this is what I'm
Absolutely.
seeing. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a number of ways to have that conversation. It could be, I'm concerned. It would be, are you open for an observation? It could be, I want what's best for you. And I really want this to be your journey, and I'm going to stay out of it, even though my impulse is to want to, like, go and say all this, but I'm choosing to come to you and share this with you. And I'm curious about how you experience this and what's happening for you. Yeah. There's a number of ways to have that conversation. And if you still feel like you want to talk to the coach, I would do that in consultation with your partner, not behind your partner's back.
Yes. And
Unless it
if
was like
this is
big,
this, yeah,
unless it was like a big overt lie where you're like, I know for a fact he's not sober. He's telling his whole group he's sober. Like, but even in that, that's again, that's his consequence. Like, he has to go own that with them. If you own it for him, he does not have the same accountability. And so to me, that's more about, what boundaries are you going to set with him? Because this behavior doesn't make you feel safe, doesn't make you feel like there's change. It doesn't make you feel like, so I go to, it just doesn't make me feel like you are this authentic person you're presenting. And it makes me feel icky inside. And so I'm going to put a little bit more space here until something else organically appears.
thank you. Okay. Is full therapeutic disclosure always necessary in recovery? Mostly believe my SA partner when he says he has disclosed everything, and I feel like I do know all the horrible truths I need to know. We are not seeing a CSAT, but we are both in individual therapy. He is working the 12 steps in daily SAA meetings, but I want to make sure I'm making the right decision and not pursuing formal therapeutic disclosure polygraph, or is it really essential part of our reconciliation?
So, first things first, I'm just going to say it. You probably need to see a CSAT. And I'm only saying that because I'm outing myself. I was a therapist for many years. I worked in addiction and mental health and complex trauma and all the things. And I would have told you I could handle this case until I got trained and until I worked in this arena. And now I understand how it is very different. It is very different. Knowing the language we speak within this realm, knowing what recovery looks like in this realm, and also how to guide a partner through true betrayal trauma. So that's just something I'm putting out there, that I want to make sure you have the best help for you. And you want to make sure somebody really understands how to navigate this specifically. Because I thought I could handle it all. And then I was like, you know what? I'm a baby, little fish in a giant pond again. And I had to learn it all again. So there's a lot of nuance with sex and relationships in betrayal trauma and sex addiction that is not taught in grad school. We don't have a single class on it. The word never once came up, ever, in my entire training and years after. Never once. Okay. So that's the first thing. Second thing, is disclosure always required? No, it's not always required. I believe that the partner gets to decide whether or not it's something they feel they need to move forward. And the addict would offer that up as a means of healing the relationship, having a fresh start. But if you feel satisfied with what you know, and you feel ready and willing and able to move forward, there absolutely is no rule in the book that says you're sorry. In order to heal, you have to do a disclosure. You don't. And there's some couples that are like, look, I have all the action steps in front of me that are showing that he's changing, he's moving towards change, he's in recovery. I don't need to go back and ask more questions and get more gory details. And then there's those that need that. So it's absolutely not like a prerequisite for healing that you have to do this. If you have all those lingering questions and you feel like they pop up at random times and it's like, I don't know, I'm not sure, it's something to explore. But it doesn't sound to me like it's something that you're wondering, like, should I want this? But I don't. Also, polygraph, super controversial. We personally do not stand by polygraphs for a number of reasons, but mainly we have had just my own personal experience of polygraphs in treatment is having clients come with 2 polygraph reports 1 day apart, and one is a pass and one is a fail, the same questions. It's just literally an anxiety monitor. It's why they're not admissible in court. A lot of people put all their eggs in that basket. And we've had clients that truly were telling the truth and failed, and totally narcissistic clients that are like, I breezed right by that. Haha. And they were lying the whole time. So I don't advocate for putting all your eggs in the polygraph basket. If you're going to do it, just understand the risks is all I say. But no, for you feel good about where you guys are. I would say just make sure your support people are really educated in this area, whether they're a CSAT or not, but for sure, a CSAT is that they're educated in this area and they're guiding you in a correct path forward.
Yeah, and he's going to daily meetings. If he's really working the steps and not a year and a half in on step 2, those are the actionable things, and you will start to see that he is different. And so I'm trust your gut. Everybody's journey is different. It is not do this and then do this and then do this and then you're going to all be ooh, everything's going to be great. It's like, what do you need? That's why boundaries are so challenging, because they aren't the same for everyone. It's like you need internal boundaries and external boundaries. And what does that look like for you navigating this relationship? So, I put Matt Wheeler, I put the previously recorded webinars, which is where this one will go. But Matt Wheeler has talked about that pretty regularly on, on his webinar as well. He works with a lot of couples, and, he said, I say, everybody needed to have a disclosure. He said, now I don't, it really is on a case by case basis. So.
Yeah.
Betrayer here. The Out of the Doghouse course has been fantastic to take a deeper dive into what my partner has gone through and how I have been wrong in my thinking. Highly recommend both level 1 and 2. Well, thank you. That was lovely. And I did put the link for all of the work groups. So we have the Betrayed Partner one will start again in January. Sex Addiction 101 starts December 10th. I don't hold me to the rest of them, but check out the schedule, for the various work groups. So what a work group is, I'll take just a second. Those are live facilitated 90 minutes per week courses. They are not treatment. They are not therapy, but many therapists recommend them in conjunction with the work that they are doing, because you will get more information than you will get information that you won't get in therapy. And somebody will say something and you'll go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Also, shame reduction. If you're talking in a group and sharing something and everybody else is nodding their head, you're going to go, oh, I'm not a unicorn. There's so much stuff out there, and somebody may have a suggestion for things there, but again, they're all live facilitated. Jason Swilling is one of our staff, and he teaches the Out of the Doghouse course, and yes, he does a great job with it. Yeah, so
he's so good.
So check those out. Thank you for the unsolicited endorsement. So this is referring back to, it's a joint meeting between the 3 of us with his recovery coach that my addict partner requested from his coach.
Oh, yes. Oh, you're clear, because it said something about company at the beginning of that first. Anyway, so great. A joint meeting between the 3 of us with his recovery coach that my addict partner requested from his coach. Great. That's fabulous. Yes. Share openly about what you see, what you feel, all the things. That's great. And it's a good sign that he requested it too. I like that.
Okay. How do I know if a CSAT is a good CSAT?
Well,
So
hmm,
uh, I have a list. So yeah, no, seriously, I have a list of like first of all, I worked with ITAP for 10 and a half years. So I watched a lot of them. I watched a lot of them, and there were some that I was like, I would go see this person myself, and then there's others that were on the other end of that spectrum. And so, and then you know, we have relationships with people that have referred clients to us, and it's not just that, but you know,
but
I'm
we've witnessed
also
their work with them through
yes,
the eyes of the
exactly,
client.
yes. Yes, and and then there's a number that we refer, you know, clients to them. So, but people, you know, people talk to me, and I ask questions, and it's not that I use anybody's names, but I want to know, you know, we're seeking integrity. I work really hard at making sure that we're making viable referrals. That said, somebody could be a great fit for someone and not so great for another person.
Yeah.
Again, so looking for the nuances. We have people that have mother enmeshment. So that's a different specialty. We have co-occurring chemicals. You know, there's all kinds of things. And so looking for the right fit. If you're doing this on your own, the directory is iitap.com, and you can go through the list and you can ask questions of them. We only refer to people that work from a pro-dependent lens. If they're going to blame partners, not really helpful. So there's a lot of things, but you know, you can ask them about, you know, what your treatment goals are and how they would align with that. We have some that have, you know, a 6-month wait list, or that will only see you on a certain whatever. I mean, there's lots of different things. Again, this is an individual choice. You don't have to like them. You need to respect their work. Like that to me is really key. I just have to know that they're going to do their best to help me on with my treatment goals, you know, and hold accountability. If you're talking about what happened this week and that's the only thing you talk about all the time, you're not going to get, you know, you're not going to make progress, you know. So there's a lot of factors. It's a great question. And you can email me, Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com, and tell me where you're located, and I'll do my best to give you people that, you know, I think could be useful. Let me know if you're the person that's been betrayed, or the person that's been struggling with compulsive behaviors too. So there's so many factors. Like some of them
Yeah.
will never refer for a higher level of help. Huge red flag, because there's some of you guys that need a higher level of help. And if they have been seeing you for 5 years and you're still struggling with acting out, guess what? That's not helpful. That's painful.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, Tammy, I love how you said, you know, you can ask questions. I always say we are a consumer, and a CSAT is a product. You should do some due diligence, see if you can connect with them on the phone over, this is where I'd hope to go. What are your specialties? Are you able to handle this type of case? Like really just talk to a few people. Yeah. But Tammy has a really great list of people she has personal experience with. Many of us have personal experience with, being really good.
So I'm trying to post in. Okay. So there's somebody asked about, so the link that I put with Matt Wheeler's, that is where all of the videos are posted, and you can scroll down to the bottom. That's the newest ones. And then you can go to our YouTube. It'll take you to our YouTube channel, and you can search, you know, for partners. I recommend Debbie McRae's, because she has fabulous information about that.
So
I
good.
posted the blog about the should I stay or go. Well, there were 4 webinars from May till September, you know, that kind of address that topic. So lump them together so that you could, you know, find the links easily for that. But, you know, there's just a ton of you couldn't sit and watch those. Like you could not binge watch them all. So
Hmm.
okay, so the next question. Betrayed partner, do you have any recommendations on how to ask for a divorce with the best possible outcome from an active addict, not in good recovery, sober maybe? How do I speak with him about, with a word guard? He doesn't take blame, even though it's because of his addiction, the divorce is happening. I just can't come out and say it, or his response will be the addiction him. Please go to that blog that I posted. There's, again, should I stay or go? And Debbie Doak did
Mhm.
mediation, and she had great information, you know, along those lines. So that one could be useful for you on that. And this may be something that you need to do with a qualified professional, like, honestly, like if it's
That's
not
where I
safe.
go.
So, oh, is that what you, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because you're asking this because you're concerned about the response. And so I would get a plan together with a qualified professional and meet in front of a qualified professional. Yeah. Because if it's divorce, there's many ways. I mean, now the term out there, conscious uncoupling, is like a
Yes.
thing. It's like, how can we do this in the most loving, supportive, caring way? It doesn't always go that way. You have to have two invested in conscious uncoupling, but it only takes one to say that this is what needs to happen and here's why. And here's the plan forward. But definitely seeking legal advice prior to, what are my rights? What do I need to document? What do I need to have in place? And then a qualified professional to actually help you have that conversation.
Okay. Um, Betrayed here. My sex life with myself is suffering. We're going on 6 months since discovery. I do self pleasure, but a few things are getting in the way. It's difficult not to have all the things I've learned about my partner, sex addiction, and porn addiction coursing through my mind, including a newfound preoccupation with thinking about porn. Without
Mm.
recent sex activity with my partner, I don't have much healthy fantasy to work with. My partner works from home, so I try to be quiet and not obvious about it, fitting it in when he's doing yard work or sleeping. Any suggestions on how to stay in touch with yourself sexually as your addict partner is sober and as a couple you're abstinent?
Well, okay. So I think clearly, there's some trauma in the way. This is something that I would say, obviously, working through the betrayal trauma, meaning those intrusive images that even when your own arousal is triggered, it's attached to the pain of the relationship. So that to me says these barriers are trauma based, and I need to process and move through some of those. EMDR is a really great way to do that because it gets into the subconscious where all those images are stored and helps you to release those so you can have a better connection to your body as being safe, to your, emotions being safe, and to your experience with yourself as being safe and separate from. Um, if that still continues, I would say you can meet with a sex therapist. We're very sex positive, and like, we don't demonize self pleasure. We don't demonize pornography, even. It's, what do these things do in your life? And for our clients, they have ruined their life, right? It's taken over my ability to function in a relationship, my ability to function at my job, my ability to function, as a father or as a parent. So for you, you're trying to reclaim your own body, meaning what you're experiencing tells me that your own body is struggling with betrayal. Like, it's in the cells of your being. That's where trauma is stored. And so there's some trauma that needs to be cleared to reclaim your body back to yourself. So I think EMDR and brain spotting are two of my favorite modalities that can help to clear whatever's in the subconscious. Yeah.
I love those two. Okay, so the next one is, what is the difference between a CSAT and a recovery coach? Well, Erin's a CSAT. All of our staff are
Oh,
CSAT because they're licensed mental health professionals. And so they've got thousands of hours of training, and they also take the extra training, and there's 30 hours of supervision. So they've got 150 hours of training on top of their licensure in order to be a certified sex addiction therapist. A coach, any anybody can say they're a coach, and you can go get a certificate, which is like, you can go to a weekend program and become a recovery coach. And most recovery coaches will be working with substances. Often they are people who are in recovery, and they're doing it from a, hey, this is what I did, uh, all good, if it's helpful, but they are not qualified to work with mental health issues. They just aren't. And you are working, like I said, with a fitness coach. They're working, here's where you are now. They're not going to talk about what you were, like in kindergarten. They're going to talk about here, and here's the plan for tomorrow. You're going to go, do your run. You're going to the gym, whatever. This is what you're going to eat. That's different. So, anything to add on that one?
yeah. I don't want to diminish, like, that there are amazing coaches out there. But what I do think is important to know is that, again, I spent 7 years in school on top of 3,000 hours, which takes a minimum of 2 years to get under supervision, on top of the CSAT, training, on top of that supervision. I mean, it's a lot of work. And also, I answer to a board. I answer to a licensed
Good point.
board
Yeah.
that will not tolerate, um, if I am being illegal, if I am not being ethical, I can have complaints brought against my license. In the coaching world, there is no governing board. There is no, and I've worked with, I mean, amazing coaches out there. I'm not saying that at all, but even the best of coaches will say they know their scope of practice. You have to be
Yes.
leery of somebody who says, I'm a coach and you know, I deal with mental health and I deal with trauma and I deal with all this. Like, well, hold on a second. Like, are you qualified to do that? So there are amazing coaches out there, but they know their scope of practice. They know their specialties. Like if it's men's work, if it's women's work, if it's spiritual journeys, if it's recovery, that's all good. But it's all about practical steps to move through you have to be really careful. Because again, you could run into trouble and there's no governing board. It just
So
is.
here, let's talk about scope of practice, because we get people that go, my therapist diagnosed me with whatever, like bipolar, let's talk a little bit about, scope of practice for mental health professionals.
Yeah. So I have the ability, I can diagnose anything in the DSM, actually. But even for myself as a therapist in CSAT, if it's something that is presenting as a personality disorder, for instance, I may refer them even to have further assessment done by a neuropsychologist, right? I can diagnose a personality disorder. It's not that. It's that those diagnoses are often thrown around, and these are lifetime. Like they had to pre-exist puberty in order and infiltrate every area of functioning. So even for me, I have the ability to, and I still bring in consultation in certain areas because I think all good therapists, us saying we don't know it all is a strength. It's saying, let me find an expert on that. Let me find someone who can bring in more good data and research on that. A coach cannot diagnose. They can't. So they're not licensed and trained to diagnose out of the DSM. They could say like, wow, you seem really depressed. You should go get a diagnosis. You should go get an assessment. They may bring that observation to you, but they are not licensed and trained to diagnose anything.
Okay, last question. When is the right time to start marriage counseling following betrayal? Each of us has a CSAT and an APSAT, but haven't done a formal therapeutic disclosure yet. We're working towards it.
Yeah. So we get this question a lot. It is important, I think, before you do couples work, that there is some semblance of individual healing on both sides. I'm not going to put a time frame on that, but I will say it's not 1 week, right? We want to have the ability for him to have some level of recovery, accountability, learning those relational skills, moving forward in the process, and for the partner to work on regulation and self-safety and self-care and boundaries. And really, once you come together, then doing some of that deeper work feels productive. We've had a number of cases where they started couples work before the client was even sober, before the addict was even sober, and the partner's in there just like bearing their soul and being blamed at times for the problems of not moving forward, all the while the addict was acting out and they weren't even in their right mind to do that type of work. So we just want to make sure the only time like that I will recommend couples therapy right away is if it's for co-parenting issues. Like we need to, but even in that case, you can bring two therapists together. You can do it in a quad strategy. You can, but would be like, we have to actually learn like how to talk about the logistics of the day to day because we have children involved, we have whatever it is. So I would say like, give it at least, I would say 90 days, but like at least that to be able to establish your own sense of healing and recovery. Yes, you're still coexisting, you're still communicating, you have tools. Both of your therapists are giving you tools. You can meet together with both therapists. Before you really dive into like the deep stuff between you, make sure you both are safe and have a foundation.
And often it's around formal therapeutic disclosure. And this is just experience. And, when people, I get questions a lot. Can you recommend a couples therapist? And I say, please ask your individual therapist, because ideally there's a release sign so that your couples therapist is talking to your individual therapist and vice versa. And so finding someone that they feel comfortable with working with because they've had good experience could be a good start. But I have not heard quad before, but that makes sense. I always call it conjoint. So
Quad
both
strategy.
therapists and both therapists and both of you doing couples therapy can often be helpful too, because then they know each of you, because in a couples therapy session, the coupleship is the client, not either of you. And so often people are going like, yeah, we're going to go fix our marriage. And yeah, it's so somebody used, and I love this one, and I've shared it a bunch of times, and I don't know who to give credit to, but it's like, rowing the boat. So both of the addict and the partner are in the boat, and the partner is paddling away, and the addict doesn't even have an oar in the water and is just sitting there waiting. And there's lying and there's minimizing, and guess what? You're going around in circles, and blaming of the partner, and partner frustrated because, gosh, we're not making any progress. So making sure that you're at the right point. Again, all of this is subject to individuals. If you're working with qualified professionals, they can help you with that. So talk to them about timing, and like what the plan is for formal therapeutic disclosure, and if in their experience they think starting couples therapy after that, or like ask them that's what they're there for. So
Yeah.
thank you all. Great questions.
Great questions.
Really appreciate everybody being here and asking questions. This recording will be posted with the rest of them on our website. Happy Thanksgiving to those of you in the US. We always have people from outside too. And watch the schedule. There are some disruptions Thursday. I don't think we've got any of the drop-in groups or webinars going on Thursday, so there won't be any of those. So watch the schedule that's posted on our site. But we wish you all well, and we're here. We still have more things before Thanksgiving. So bye, everyone. Thanks, Erin.
Bye. Thank you.